I'm UFC Hall of Famer Pat Millichen.
I'm naturopath Doc Will Spencer.
I'm mindset expert Nicholas Spone. If you're on a mission to heal your soil and grow nutrient-dense food, you've come to the right place.
We are the Soil Saviors.
Everyone that we talk to wants more productive plants. They want bigger yields. Obviously, there's financial reasons for that, or feeding their families. They just want a more productive plant. So we're going to talk about, in this video, how to boost immune function, what plants need to thrive, how to get make the most out of your soil, your plants, and your productivity. Dr. Will, I guess, what are some of the first things to think about when we talk about plant productivity?
Well, the first thing I think of hearing that is just what you said. I need more yield. Yield can come in a lot of different flavors by tonnage, poundage, volume, nutrient density, healthier, flavor, more flavor. If you're selling into that market like strawberries or tomatoes, you want a flavor profile that's really, really diverse. So,
and everybody wants more of all of those, right? Like, I want more tomatoes that taste better.
Not necessarily.
Well, I guess different industries.
I mean, if you're just growing corn for ethanol, you don't care about anything except ton.
Sure.
On yield. That's it. Bushels per acre. That's what you're selling. You make your living on producing bushel per acre. Right?
And at the same time, if you eat tomatoes out of the supermarket, there's not a whole lot of flavor.
Right? You can slice those and they're white and pale
and full hair
stiff. And they're ugly, and you get a one out of a garden that's got a Soil Savers product or a rich soil. It's red, it's bright, it's vibrant, and
it's flavor.
And
the taste explodes in your mouth.
Yeah.
Our tongues know when we're getting the minerals and the nutrients that we need to thrive, and we taste it. That's what we're drawn to, things that taste good. Those store-bought tomatoes just don't have the flavor, do they?
Therefore, why processed food companies will use synthetic chemicals to enhance the flavors, the salt and sugar flavors, all those sort of things, to trick our taste buds into wanting, more, because we think that it's good for us subconsciously.
So is it safe to say that a plant that is healthy is going to have a more robust root system, is going to yield more, is going to yield more nutrient-dense food, and is going to be more resistant to stressors like pests, droughts, temperature? I mean, is that a fair assessment?
Exactly.
Okay, so we don't have to talk about those things anymore, because those are all a function of the health and vitality of the plant. So then let's just make this video about how do we maximize the health and vitality of a plant?
I need to add two more things into that basket, because if that plant is healthy and it is producing its genetic potential, which is virtually untapped really of most of the plants, is you're not going to have a pest problem, because a healthy, vibrant, producing plant is going to repel on its own. The immune function is going to be there automatically. So along with the bigger yield, the better flavor profile, the healthier plant, the bigger root system comes lack of pests, and immune function gets to function.
And pests being not only just flying bugs that will eat the plant or the fruits, but bacterial infections, fungus, other things.
And weeds. Yeah. Weeds is also called pest pressure. So pests, anything that's going to cause the opposite effect of health.
And a little side conversation here, but would it be the same in people if you have two people that are in a mosquito dense environment and one's got high vitality and one doesn't? Would the one that doesn't tend to attract more mosquitoes? Because I know in different settings, some people are bothered more.
And the one would repel.
Is this a true thing?
Oh, 100%. I experience that all the time. Okay, so plants are the same way. I only have like a tick problem on my body. I can go and usually not have a mosquito when there's mosquitoes. They don't bother you when you are mineral dense and health and vitality. You repel bugs just like that plant has the ability to.
All right, so how do we get that plant to fully express that health and vitality?
Well, that plant requires some building blocks and fuel. That is colloid minerals, C minerals. That's your basics. And then the microorganisms that are there in the soil and in the plant to do the job, because it's actually without the organisms in the soil, you lack the ability for that plant to acquire the needed necessity that's in the soil. So it's called locked. You can have, if you don't have the microbe and that's under that plant or in that plant, if you don't have the microbes to do the work, which is converting the elements in the soil to make them available to the plant, because there's a communication that happens there. The plant is talking constantly to the organisms that are in the soil, in the root system, the mycelia, the other funguses, the bacteria, the nematodes, trematodes. All these organisms are in constant communication. So the plant's going, oh wow, I need some calcium. I'm oversimplifying this, but I need some calcium. Hey, fellas down there, can you give me some calcium? And then they're going to do their magic in the soil, and they're going to sugar. They're going to, give me some sugar, give me something. And there's this constant communication. Without the broad diversity of organisms in that soil, you don't get the broad diversity of needed elements to the plant. You don't have proper immune function. You can't fully genetic express properly without that whole thing happening.
It's almost like those microorganisms are chewing the food ahead of time for the plant.
It's not almost like that's exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, they create exudates or enzymes to break down whatever, and then boop, up the food chain it goes to the plant.
That's in the agriculture industry when they talk about the word bioavailable. It's a complete misnomer because the plants will uptake anything into themselves, right? If there's toxins in the soil, they're going to bring them up. So, and they will use what they can out of that. So that's technically bioavailable to them. But when we're talking real bioavailability, again, those nutrients will be brought up instead, which will displace and move and not uptake the toxins, right? Nearly as much.
It also goes for pulling the elements out of the air. And this is where the conversation nowadays is
Electroculture.
the electroculture and also nitrogen problems. Because this is the NPK, the nitrogen fertilizer thing, is the need for the nitrogen fertilizer goes away once you have the biology with the plant, because then the plant has the ability to open its pores and respirate, breathe, and it's sucking what's in our air. Our air is, I think the number is somewhere 60 to 70% nitrogen rich in our air.
Yeah.
And plants have the ability to extract it out of the air, all plants, if they have the proper nutrients in the plant and the soil, and if they have the proper biology.
Along with the nitrogen fixing cover crops if you wanted to.
Hey, you can do it that way. I'm just talking just the function of any plant has the ability to sequester or breathe in the air and pull out the nitrogen and other compounds out of the air. That's one of the ways medicinal plants like dandelions are able to affix high amounts of calcium, for instance, from the roots as well as from the air.
So there's really there's no shortage of nitrogen in the ecosystem. It's whether the plants are pulling it down and the microorganisms are in balance.
Plants don't have the ability because the building blocks and the other compounds are like microorganisms. They're not there.
Okay.
It's deficient.
So I'm thinking, with human health, we keep talking about two things: toxins and the proper minerals and nutrients, right? And if you have a toxic system or you're missing those building blocks of minerals in the proper form, you're not going to express as full vitality and health as possible. Same thing with the plants, right? It's if there's toxins available or if they're missing nutrients and microorganisms that come from those microbes digesting it, the plant's not going to fully express health, correct?
It can't.
Okay.
Correct.
So let's just go down these two roads. First of all, I kind of know what you're going to say, but for the listeners, how do we get toxins out of the soil?
How do we get toxins out of the soil? Well, first of all, you got to have the microbiology's got to be there because it's their job to clean.
And the carbon's going to be there
And
to attract it.
and the other element,
Sequester it to treat it with the microorganisms, right?
yeah, carbon and other things. But yes, you got to have building blocks, material, and you got to have the workers, the microorganisms there.
And these are the soil probiotics that we call extremophiles. Explain extremophiles briefly for us.
Right. So there's in the kit, there's over 1,000 strains of these organisms that have naturally existed for millennia in very extreme conditions. High pressure, low pressure, high temp, low temp. high acidity, low acidity, high salts and saline, and low salts and saline. So
Radioactive.
radioactive.
And then at the same time, some of them even 3 different types of extreme environments at the same time, right?
Right.
High pressure, high salinity, high temperature from the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah.
So, but you think of the diversity that's going on there.
And they, in those conditions, like those extreme conditions, live and thrive and eat and do their job. And so then we've collected them from around the planet over the years, figured out how to keep them in a dormant, in a cohesive and harmonious state and work together well. And then when deployed into an agricultural or a soil or a hydroponic system, we maximize their ability in these they eat stuff that's to stay alive, and then they alter the environments by creating chemistry, oxidates, enzymes to break down heavy metals and petrochemicals, because that's their food.
Into what?
Into essential fatty acids and colloid minerals. They're converting everything into those elements. So colloid minerals and essential fatty acids, which is a benefit to that environment.
And I want to cut people off at the pass that are going to say, wait a minute, again, we have to talk about this, because I want to chop the legs out on the critics right away so that they understand that we understand, and that there's been a lot of, there's people who are conventionally trained in composting or these worlds that work with 12 specific microorganisms, right? And they say, oh my goodness, what are you doing? That you're unleashing a pathogenic, shitstorm on. No, the microorganisms that are needed are the only ones that are going to express themselves, and the populations will go up to address the issues to fix, and then go back where they belong. They stay in balance when you have that many, the diversity that we're talking about. Put those down, you don't have the overpopulation.
To keep each other in balance.
So people have to understand that concept, because that's the facts.
And they'll bring a system that's got too much of some strains or fungal overloads. I mean, they'll bring that back into balance.
That's their job.
They'll compete for that space.
Let's give people a real life application. Why don't you tell the tractor story? And I think that paints
tractor?
Yeah, that paints a pretty clear picture of the things that these can do.
So I bought some tractors for parts at an auction. I put them out in the back in my pasture, and they sat there. And over time, my animals kind of tugged a few hoses off and things, and it was leaky, and hydraulic fluff, the hydraulic engine oil, and my kids were little and playing them, because they were just there for parts. Well, what happened was the oil had basically dripped onto the ground, and nothing was growing. And so this was back, 35 years ago. So one of my mentors said, well, go put this out there on that, and it'll clean that right up, no problem. So we put the micro combination out there onto the bald spot, I call it. It was just petroleum, rock, rich soil. And all of a sudden, I didn't think anything of it. I just left it and walked away. It rained a little bit, and like a month later or something, all of a sudden, you can hardly see the front of that tractor because there's grass everywhere. And then there's goats, because I had a goat dairy and some horses and things. They were like camped out on this tractor, like they wouldn't leave it alone. They wouldn't leave it alone. They were eating that grass. So those organisms had broken down those hydrocarbons and petrochemicals and whatever else, metals and everything else in there, and it turned that bald spot in a matter of a time that summer into grass that you can hardly see.
That was very nutrient dense.
Very nutrient dense, and all of a sudden the bald spot was gone. There's grass growing there, and the animals were constantly eating that. And I was a little freaked out at first, and so I'm like, hey, called, like, this is the story, what's going on? And he laughs. He goes, it's okay. He goes, that grass, they're going to love that grass. That grass, because of the nutritional value that's in the petroleum, has now been converted and freed up to make food for that grass.
Because
now the grass,
because the petroleum is just decomposed plant matter. The nutrients from decomposed plant.
So that sounds dramatic, believable. I mean, this is, we know that microorganisms can do that, but like, let's talk about the potential for, like, if there's a massive oil spill
Which there has been.
There potential for microorganisms to clean that up very rapidly.
100%. The Valdez thing is a really good example that it did not make the news, unfortunately. The fishermen...
Well, the corrective part didn't make the news.
Yeah, the corrected part.
The Valdez breaking it.
The scandal made the news.
The spill made the news because they had to demonize how bad petroleum is in the environment, and they showed a petroleum-laden duck or pelican.
Sure.
People
Emotional.
which is horrible. It's horrible on itself, and yes, that is bad, and the good news is, over time, the naturally occurring organisms, along with a few companies like my mentors, they deployed some extra microbes in that area, and they've had the best fishing in that region where that oil was, and the fishermen demanded nobody tell anybody because they didn't want any of the other fishermen to come in those areas where they were fishing.
Wow.
Nutrient rich. Very good.
Yeah.
Very. And you can find little tidbits suggested about that now of the aftermath of that spill was absolutely the best fishing they've ever seen in that region in the ocean.
And that's an oil vent that will open up underneath a seafloor, right? And start dumping millions of gallons of oil just by natural earth process.
Yeah.
And the microorganisms are going to be breaking that down and turning that into a rich environment for it.
And those microorganisms are in the Soil Savers kits.
Yes, they are.
Awesome. All right, so we kind of have an idea of how these microorganisms, these 1,000 strains, go in, consume, digest, transmute the toxins into plant food. And also we are pairing that with a full range of minerals that are missing from the soil. Tell us about the components in the Soil Savers kit and what minerals are in there to add the nutrients that are missing from the soil.
So we have the 90C minerals, also known as electrolytes. We have the colloid minerals, the 77, 78 colloid minerals. And they're actually in a cup from several different deposits, but the main one is extremely biologically available, water soluble, and in such a small size that it doesn't clog sprayers or anything like that. So it's very easily deployable from a watering can to whatever. So it's very easy to use.
Okay, so we've got the two things: toxins in the system and a lack of nutrients. I mean, the microorganisms and the colloid minerals and electrolytes in this system have taken care of those.
And the sea kelps and all these things that he stopped it with.
But ultimately, they're colloid minerals and they're sea minerals I don't even know.
With extremely diverse microorganism populations to take care of whatever job is in your soil that needs to be done.
So we're providing the tools to the plant and the microbes so the plant can use its knowledge, its wisdom to do what it needs to do. So we're not force regulating anything. We're not forcing the plant to do anything. We are deploying elements for the plant so it can do what it wants to do. And what does a plant want to do? It wants to grow to its maximum genetic potential and produce healthy stuff.
By buying the best way to look at it is when you deploy this box, the 7 components, mixing it in water and then putting it down, you're unleashing and putting nature back in nature, right? Putting the environment back in the environment. What's missing from the environment?
Right, just restoring balance and harmony in the way things should be.
Yes.
I mean, it's not like
Total
a
reset.
quick fix. It is the way things should be.
And allowing the plant to do its thing, because a plant that's able to fully express its potential will.
Let's go back to the Jurassic Age almost, right? Before mankind destroyed everything.
This is where we get 16-foot tall tomato plants, 18 feet long cucumber plants that overtake somebody's porch.
Well, just anything is going to be over-exaggerated with proper genetic expression, right?
Well, that's what I was talking about. Genetic expression. So now that the soil's detoxed, the nutrients and the minerals are there, and the sea minerals are there, what is that signaling inside of the plants for how to express?
You want me to talk first? Or go ahead and go.
No, you go. No, you go.
when I have proper genetic expression in my own body, and I have the building blocks, and I've been developing and healing and all those things that are supposed to be happening within a human being, for instance, I can't stop myself. I have to go for a run, or I have to go work in the yard, or there's just that, you just are going to do it. You have to go into motion. You have to do and generate good things around you, and whatever that is, generate life, more life. A plant is going to properly the genetic expression is everything from bugs not eating it to generating a massive load of tomatoes, for instance.
Well, that's
a tomato plant.
That's what we care about is reproduction, right? Because that's what where our yields are coming from.
What plants want to do is create more of
themselves, yes.
And so you can think about, there's I think fertility issues around the world right now, probably due to toxins and a nutrient deficiency.
100%.
So if women and couples got rid of their toxins and had the minerals in the proper form and the nutrients, they would be much easier.
Baby essential.
Would be much easier to have a healthy baby, right?
Yes, right.
So these plants want to produce these babies, and that's their genetic expression.
Yes.
And easiest for most farmers, growers, gardeners to visualize is corn, because where there's a leaf, they can on that joint can produce a cob. I mean, we've been successful at creating 6 full cobs on an 11-foot corn plant. 6 successfully filled out, which is kind of unheard of. I mean, but the potential is even more. But with putting the right nutrients in there in the soil, making it available to the plant will just use it and keep going. And as long as the weather and the other, the environmental conditions allow.
I still have a picture of my grandma and grandpa on my mother's side from, far before the industrial or the conventional agriculture world kicked in. And the corn stalks behind them are as high as it's unimaginable how big these plants are, and there's corn all the way up. Right behind them, you can see it. It's incredible.
And now we have a hard time in ag, conventional ag especially, to produce one cob.
One full year. Yeah.
They're really growing a huge plant, a 12-foot tall plant. My dad's used to go hit the irrigation system, an overhead irrigation system was like 12 feet tall. And the corn would be hitting with one cob.
And and at the same time though, conversely, they're genetically creating shorter stalks as well with one cob, because they just don't want the energy going into the stalk, right?
Okay, so let's talk. I think we kind of have a pretty clear idea that a healthy plant is going to express the pest and weed pressure is naturally going to be lower. The resistance to stressors is going to be higher, just like a human that's more adaptable because they're healthy. They can face different stressors. So the plant's producing more. So let's talk about some specific applications, I guess, in our gardens. Let's start with gardens. So someone with a garden can apply the Soil Saviors products and get fuller expression in tomatoes, cucumbers. I mean, everything that builds a garden, right?
Grows, yeah, because the soil is deficient. I don't care how well you compost. I don't care where we missing the microorganisms. We're missing the raw material, and we have a toxic environment on top of it. And so when you correct those things, the plant then can just do its thing.
Especially with people, I think, we talked about this in another video, in our compost video, who are getting compost from unsavory sources like the county compost facilities. And they're putting that in their garden. They're getting all kinds of symptoms. And I think this is the solution to treat your garden with, to turn that into plant food, right?
100%. Yeah.
This is the only solution that I've been able to see at all that can take contaminated soil and break it down and then make it usable.
And I guess the alternative would be to remove all of it and to buy,
which is half-right.
Yeah, I guess how are you going to put the minerals back in, even if you put new soil in?
So, yeah, and that's the thing. He's making a good point. Soil Saviors is the first to market to have the ability to not only grow much larger yields with nutrient density, rich ratings in the vegetables and fruit, but at the same time correct the toxicity of the soil.
like erase, totally eliminate forever chemicals in the soil while you're growing your food and end up with food that's non-toxic and nutrient dense and high vitality, all at the same time.
Okay, orchard applications. So Pat and I, we treated the apple tree in my backyard. It looks better than it's ever looked. Last year there were spots on the leaves and the apples, and I mean they're really.
The apples they're already. I mean, we're gonna have mature apples on that tree in a month. So the
Tree is able to make apples faster.
so much faster.
It looks
You have
like
more flowers, which leads to more apple.
And here's the cool thing. So it's a big apple tree. It's a good sized apple tree. We didn't have a drone at the time, and we didn't pull the ladder out and throw it up on the garage.
We sprayed what we could then.
We sprayed what we could, and where it was sprayed, which is the same thing with berry bushes that I have observed doing deliberate half sprays of a bush, where the blooms will explode on that side of the bush. The genetic expression happens very quickly there, and there's a lot more berries on that side of the bush, conversely. So the parts of the apple tree that we could reach and spray have apples that are, this big already. And the other parts of the tree, the apples are this big. In some places, there's no apples in those areas, right? So
That's pretty clear and obvious to me. There's something going on.
Sure, yeah. And then we just started though drilling holes, or no, just dumping
a solution at the root.
liquid down on the root system to let it soak in, which is going to take a little bit of time to get down in there. I didn't drill any holes and to get down.
It'll soak in. And we treated my blackberries, but those do pretty well anyway. But I'm excited to see
blackberry bush
how the berry yields higher.
It was pruned back quite a bit, and the thing is just it exploded everywhere already again. Right.
Fortunately, we hear that a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's kind of understanding garden orchards. I mean, I'm not that's just one example. I know a lot of our customers are using it on their trees as well.
No, then we've got a lot of people with blueberry farms and other berry production and orchards that are all basically saying the same thing. They've never seen this much fruit in their life.
Yeah, and those that have animals, they may not think of it this way, but they're grass farmers, right? And so they need to maximize the yield of their grass. We talked about this in another video as far as managed intensive grazing, but for treating the land, just like I guess a hunting food plot would be the same application as just spraying directly on that acreage of a pasture, right?
Yeah, you're just going to just spray it on. I mean, literally, like you would in fertilizers or pesticides. It's the same process. You're just going to folio spray it on with a regular conventional sprayer. Of course, you're going to want to clean it out and all that.
I think that at some point with the massive number of people that are coming on board with what we're doing, and like-minded people that are looking for solutions, that all those spray rigs out there aren't going to ever have chemicals run through them, right? They're only going to be running Soil Savers products through them. That's it. So the most they're going to have to do is to clean them out, because the microorganisms will smell after they pass away unless...
Yeah, you want to rinse them out, obviously.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and then you can pair this with the livestock saviors, minerals and probiotics, and with the livestock grazing and then free choice minerals, I mean, they're manure putting back into the system, the microorganisms and the minerals.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just going to build the
better soil, better environment for all the animals. Yes.
Yeah. And so the Soil Savers boxes paired with those livestock saviors.
They complement really well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the water, the water saver device for using that water run through that, or the water run through that device to then deploy with the products is even better.
Yep. Okay, so here's a question. I love culinary herbs. I'm guessing they also have medicinal properties, and those medicinal herbs are sequestering certain nutrients from the air, from the soil, to put them to fix the soil with. By treating herbs with Soil Saviors, are you going to be telling that environment that, hey, we actually don't need these herbs to grow?
That's a really good point, because there's an aspect of that could be a little bit of a dilemma. So you're growing medicinal herbs. You shouldn't be farming medicinal herbs to begin with.
Shouldn't be growing them with synthetics either.
Sure, if you want. But I'm just looking at the medicinal value. I mean, I was taught as an herbologist early on, that you need to hunt those herbs because
In the woods.
well, they grow in areas that they need to grow in, and then when the area is fixed, they'll move away. They won't be there anymore. And so this becomes a little bit of an issue sometimes when you're trying to grow a medicinal plant, you're supposed, unnaturally farming it, because sometimes when you put the soil savers boxes, the ingredients in that environment,
Those herbs will go away.
dandelions will stop growing there eventually. For instance, if you're trying to grow dandelions,
For tea.
dandelions are there only because the soil is imbalanced. You correct the imbalance and then dandelions go away.
Because you did that when you were younger. You put down.
I absolutely had that experience. So that becomes a slippery slope because medicinal herbs is probably the exception to this rule.
Okay.
Because true medicinal herbs will not grow in a balanced soil.
Well, I might be out of balance because I got a lot of mint that's spread throughout my garden.
So I'm just saying that's not a blanket statement.
Okay.
I'm using a dandelion or a weed type plant, which is really a medicinal plant as the example.
Okay.
You can have that mint growing because mint likes rich, moist soil. And so I've had successful, massive mint.
It's almost like a cover crop in my garden. Yeah. And that's almost what it's doing. And people have these memes out there that are like, if my house plant dies if I look at it wrong, and then it shows a cement sidewalk with a dandelion thriving in the middle of it, right?
Case in point.
Yeah.
I mean, case in point, that dandelion is there because that's not really good soil.
Yeah. Well, let's touch on, I guess, the expression of genes in some things like tobacco and cannabis. We did another video on this, but briefly touch on, how cannabis is raised now and how those genes are expressing. And then when it's in an environment like something that would be treated with soil savers, how does it express differently? And maybe tobacco is the same, maybe it's different. But so cannabis expression in a deficient environment and in a good one.
Cannabis and hops and tobacco have high medicinal values to them, but they're not in conventional grown or even organically grown fields. They're not fully to express all of them. Because like cannabis, they're literally causing the plant stress in order to get that THC medicine to grow. And actually THC is only there because the plant's in high stress. So if you put the plant in a nutritionally sound, high vital environment, it won't even express THC. It'll express the 19 plus terpenes. It'll express, all the different cannabinoids
Which would make it a true medicine or medicinal.
that's rare medicine.
That's a true
That's only medicine.
that's grown with real nutrients and real biology where, obviously a lot of these folks are using not, they're using synthetics and other. So there's going to be stress on the plants like Will's talking about. And I've never grown any hemp or any marijuana or anything like that. But the understanding of the concept is very simple. You either grow it for real medicinal purposes, or you're going to grow it and it's going to have a high THC value because of the stressors, and you're going to have a whatever experience you have by smoking it or eating the oil or whatever.
That goes for tobacco and hops as well, because those are three major crops for like pharmaceuticals and natural medicines, because there's value there to extract out of there either a tincture or oil or consuming the plant in one way or the other, the material. So by allowing and feeding that plant its natural expression, you're going to get a much broader, more enriched medicinal value from that plant.
I know we talk about this in side conversations, but it's like these plants naturally grown, healthfully expressed, used in moderation. I'm going to throw poppies and opium in there as well.
Sure.
They have a medicinal benefit, and tobacco the natives used, and then you can take those and alter them, change how they're used, get people addicted to them, add synthetic chemicals to them, use them.
Or create synthetic versions of them.
Right. Use them completely in an unnatural way. and you're going to have addictive substances with tons of side effects that have
With 100,000 deaths a year.
So it's not that the tobacco plant or the marijuana plant or poppies are negative or evil. I mean, these are plants expressing themselves. It's the use of them in a natural way or in an unnatural way, in a natural, healthy genetic expression, and an unnatural, unhealthy genetic expression.
Right. And it's not, again, the thing is, in regards to marijuana, things like that, which I'm not interested in it. I could care less about it, but it is a medicinal plant, so I understand that. So when we think about the delta, the synthetics and things like that they've done, that they've actually caused people to die, the synthetic versions, but yet they vilify the plant. Or they create a fentanyl that's killed 100,000 people, the opioid crisis, the synthetic version of the plant, the poppy, opium, but they'll vilify the actual opium, right? That was the medicinal plant. So things have become so convoluted and so disconnected in understanding and reality that people have to be kind of brought back to earth on real plant, not grown with synthetics, real medicinal purposes, and then the synthetics and what the damage, the massive amount of damage they're doing.
So if you're growing any of those or consuming any of those, make sure you're growing them with soil saviors as part of that protocol, right?
True medicinal, then you'll have true medicinal experience.
Okay, last point here. You guys know more about this than me, but genetically modified organisms, whether that's the plants, the microorganisms in the soil, I'm guessing those have a negative effect on us consuming them. How does soil saviors help deal with those?
Well, there's some things that we want to talk about and some things we probably don't want to talk about in regards to those realms and our understandings of them, right? So genetic modification, this is where we get real serious with the conversation. It's one thing for a corporation to create a genetically modified seed or a crop. It's quite another thing then to go into, which I think is, once that happened, the genetic modification of the cotton crop and the corn and the soybeans and other now trees and insects. And
Now we have over 40 genetically modified crops that have been for a long time now.
at least, yeah.
At least 40.
Yeah. And then now with the mRNA technology and CRISPR technology, we have to understand the implications of corporations owning the earth and every plant, insect, animal, and potentially, through Supreme Court precedents, human beings. So when we go back to the ability or knowledge of what's happening and what has taken place and what is in the future, it would be wise to protect yourself and what you're growing, your food and everything else from that with the soil savior boxes, the natural inputs and the microorganisms that stop that from happening to your food. Let's put it that way, right? Best way to look at it?
I have a good example of the good things we're regarding. So genetic modification is when they synthetically or lab or computer now with the CRISPR technology, they actually are distorting fully the natural expression of the genes. And then they're multiplying that, like we have Roundup Ready corn and beans and cotton and all these other crops that are designed to withstand chemicals.
And the neonic insecticide, for instance, in the seed already when it's thrown in the ground.
The neonicotinoid and the Bacillus thuringiensis are fused and into the seed so that when the plant grows, the plant is replicating these genetically modified cells all the way through the growing cycle on into the seed, the baby, for the next generation. So the good news is that a couple of my mentors in years past had understood how the genetic expression manipulation worked and figured out that if you put 77, 78 colloid minerals and 90 essential salt minerals and thousands of strains, hundreds, a lot of strains of naturally occurring organisms into the environment, and then grow a modified plant, the plant will adapt to the proper gene expression and drop the genetic modification.
But where in the world am I going to get all of those essential minerals and microorganisms in one place?
Well, there's this company called Soul Saviors that has this box with them in it. And when deployed into the environment in your garden or your field, by following the simple directions, you now have the ability
To do that.
to do that.
But here's the thing is, I stress, let the conventional agriculture world do what it does. When it comes to your backyard or your orchard or whatever it is, how big of operation you have the ability to grow real food, non-GMO food with real inputs and real soil-borne probiotics and create and duplicate the nature that existed 1,000 years ago, right? And that's what we're looking for, and that's what we're doing, is that we're bringing back nature into nature, and
Nature does its thing.
that's what I want my children eating, right? That is a demand that I have, at least, that I want my children to ideally be able to eat, right?
Because we can't fully genetic express if the plant's not fully genetic expressed,
And we don't get the
and the soil doesn't have the ability. Yeah, so in that chain of that food chain to us, you've got to have all of the components having full genetic expression to be healthy
transfer of the life force,
all the way through.
general vitality, nutrients, everything. Yeah.
Well, we sit down and do these videos and we're like, all right, let's do a 10-minute video on this. And of course we start talking. I just keep writing things like, oh, I got to ask this, I got to ask this. And so I'm just going to keep going here. We got a few more points. We'll wrap this up. I would say there's probably a caveat that plants that we are not supposed to be eating, nuts, grains, and seeds, when treated with the Soil Savers boxes, what happens then?
They're able to fully express their protective qualities to make sure that their species is going to reproduce and their species is able to protect themselves from the predators even more. So a healthier grain, nut, seed bearing plant is actually able to protect itself even more in the face of the predators.
And nature doesn't lose. So think about this. If that plant has the real nutrients that it needs, and it's going to express, as he said correctly, to have the most toxic seeds and nuts possible, and there's humans that believe that those are good for them to eat them, and we observe the testosterone levels going into the gutter for humans and the inability to reproduce, the human population going down, the predators are disappearing, while the seed-bearing plants, the nut-bearing plants are increasing in population because the predators are being taken out.
In today's world, it's very, very clear to see the result of that.
Yes.
Because what do we have?
Through chemicals.
What do we have for human health problems? We have infertility of all-time high. We have digestive disorders, all-time high. We have central nervous system issues.
Joint issues. Breathing issues.
Metabolic issues, autoimmune issues. And at the core, at the base, is basically the consuming of the plant chemistry to protect the plant and harm the predator.
It's one of the big issues, at least.
It's one, yeah, exactly. Along with the synthetics, yeah.
Sure.
Metals, everything.
Sure. So, and we had a conversation with a customer about this in North Carolina, and they were, people get a little bit emotional because I think they were vegetarian or mostly vegetarian, and it was like, people get a little defensive, like, well, I'm supposed to be eating that. That's what
Well, it becomes a religion, right? So just as a religion, if you're confronted about your religion, you're going to have a very spirited debate. Let's put it that way. If someone is confronted about their food choices and they believe it's the best, they're going to argue. And just as when, for instance, we'll just look at the UFC when it started.
my style is the best.
Right. And what I observed early on right away, I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but what I did observe is that ego and dogma was attached to all these different martial arts, that they believed theirs was the best, and that they were going to be the soldier that proved it. And they were going to go out into the battlefield and they were going to prove it. And the vast majority of them got annihilated, right? But on top of that, there wasn't an ability for any of them, at least in those ways that I was observing, of saying, why wouldn't I want the best of all of those? Why wouldn't I be able to absorb that and take the most logical steps forward for my survival.
Because the ego and the identity prevents people from having an open mind and seeing that.
Sure.
And it's only those that are open-minded, which are most of our listeners, only those that are open-minded enough for new ideas.
Those are the people
that can integrate. Yeah, that can integrate these things and move the world forward, move their
at a higher conscious level. That are in tune. Those are the people that we definitely want to work with, right?
So let's touch on briefly applications for conventional yields, whether that's corn, beans, canola, cotton, any other conventional crop, medium to large scale operations. Is this the right product for them to use, or is that a whole different paradigm that doesn't necessarily fit?
Well, you got to remember what you're working with here: soybean and corn and a lot of that sort of stuff, ethanol production, things. So they don't necessarily care when they're producing their crops. They care about the bottom dollar. They care about what's going to get them there, and taking out any illness in the plants, the crops, things like that. The fundamentals, right?
We had some success though, sure, in the corn. Absolutely. So you can maybe share about that, because I wasn't directly involved, but
without any NPK fertilizers or anything, the land had nothing in it, and just from the foliar spray, produced some pretty good yields. Now, if we were to put down dry spread, which we have in other places, you're going to get huge yields. But just based on just spraying the corn, had some pretty decent.
How many times was he able to get
Only twice.
So it was just twice.
He only sprayed the corn twice, and that's so. Remember, the soil is totally barren. There's nothing in it. It's dead. There's no. So they didn't even put the NPK fertilizer down on it, right? So in other instances, when dry spread is used and the foliar spray with the soil savers, you're getting massive numbers. You're turning massive numbers, but nonetheless,
those pictures and data will be on the website.
Yeah, but again, at the same time, look, I would love to change the entire world, but we have to understand that we are working with the people that want to change and protect their own families or their own customers, and many times that's an orchard owner, that's a vegetable farmer, that's those sort of settings. Again, we let the big agriculture industry do what it does. The farmers are going to come to us, to people like us, because they're going to recognize they need us. I'm not one that's going to go to them and beg for their business. I'm not going to do it, because that system is the system that they're stuck in, right? So I don't want to waste my energy when I could be helping 10 million people over here and begging one farmer with 10,000 acres to work with me. I'm not interested.
It is funny that when people are raising part of that operation, and then they use soil savers in their home garden.
Oh yeah, 100%. And we've got people that are heavy hitters within the the industrial agriculture, conventional agriculture world, who 100% use soil savers in their backyard gardens. Yes,
That'd be huge.
It says a lot. It says a lot. We have a lot.
All right, well, let me summarize here. We'll wrap this up. So plants, when they're healthy, they can genetically express, they can produce more, they're more drought resistant, they're more pest resistant, they're more resistant to all kinds of stressors, and the food that they produce tastes better. And the way to do that is to transmute the toxins in the soil to provide the full spectrum of sea minerals and colloid minerals for that genetic expression, the building blocks of that to take place. And the applications are wide and varied, from grass to your gardens to orchards and trees,
Food plots,
plots, medicinal, cannabis and tobacco and some of those things. And we've covered a lot of ground again in this video. Yep. And we'd love to hear from you. I guess, what are your applications? What do you want to produce more? Is it in your orchard, your berries, your garden produce? We'd love to hear, or your pastures. We'd love to hear from you. So leave a comment. And soilsaviors.org is where the boxes are, all the way from 0 to 40 acres. If you've got more than that, send us a message. We'll jump on the phone with you and find the best way to solve your problems. But grab a box, throw it in your garden, throw it in your orchard, throw it on your pastures.
Enjoy the process.
The sooner the better. It's a fun way. Teach your kids about it. Allow your kids to be part of this process of putting the nutrients and the microorganisms back into the soil, so your plants can genetically express, give you bigger and tastier yields. Did I miss anything?
Just also let us know where we've got to get the map up. We're still working on that. on the website because we're going to put pin drops all over the map across the country. And we want the entire United States to be covered with Soil Savers pin drops, right?
Yeah, so if you're using Soil Savers, leave us a comment where you're using it.
Thank you for listening to the Soil Savers podcast. To learn more about the Soil Savers mission or to buy Soil Savers products and restore the health and vitality of your land, livestock, pets, bees, and wildlife, visit soilsaviors.org.
This content is for educational and entertainment purposes only and is not intended to be used to treat, diagnose, prevent, or cure disease in plants or animals. Always consult qualified professionals before making decisions related to your soil, livestock, and farm management.